I guess I first wanted to talk about your film in conjunction with Fantastic Fest. It's kind of a different film than your typical Fantastic Fest fare.
Yeah.
More kind of thrillery and action, and you definitely infuse it with that Western piece too. Why was your film a good fit, do you think, for Fantastic Fest this year?
Oh, and I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I think we just submitted and crossed our fingers and got lucky. But yeah, maybe I think though it's not horror, it's like we a lot of our cast sort of comes from that horror community, and we have Barbara and Jim is obviously like uh you know his movies played at Fantastic Fest, so maybe it was just like the type of cast that we put together was a good fit. Is my assumption. Yeah.
No, I love the cast, and I did want to ask you about Jim Cummings. Love him as a
Yeah.
writer and director, but he's such a charismatic and magnetic actor. What made you want to work with him on this film?
Man, Jim is just, I love his movies. I respect the fuck out of Jim as a filmmaker and just his whole ethos about the filmmaking process. He was sort of a North Star for me when I was, just like going out to the desert with my friends, packing the van full of people with no experience and just making stuff because we had to. And like seeing somebody like Jim that was doing it and actually got success, it was inspiring, and uh when I was writing this character, Jim kind of just kept popping into my head. Because I always looked at this more of like a dark comedy,
Mm.
and I just knew he would him bringing his sensibilities to this character would really bring it to life. So um, yeah, I mean, I Jim and the rest of the cast, I wrote everybody letters, just personal letters, and had my casting director get them out, and lucky man. Jim wrote my letter. He called me that night. I went over and had coffee with him, and we just talked about South Park and movies. And like, I mean, by the time the meeting was over, he's like, "I want to do the movie," and it was. And then from there, we kind of just kept pushing our luck. Well, maybe we can get Barbara. Maybe we get Alex Esso, and kind of just kept pushing our luck with actors that I just really really love
No,
and that I've been a fan of.
yeah, and I'm a fan
Yeah,
too, and so I was really grateful to see him in a kind of different role, I think, than we've seen Jim before. So that was really,
yeah,
really neat. I also wanted to touch on Richard Brake in the film, who, as you kind of hinted at earlier, your cast has a long legacy in horror films, and he definitely does. What
yeah.
made you want to have him as the kind of villain antagonist, the lead bank robber there?
Yeah, well, Rich was actually like the first to read the script. I first wrote it. Our EP James had a connection with Break, so we sent it to him, and again, just hopped on a call with him. I think we talked for like 2 hours, mainly just about movies. And so he was like the first person to say like, I want to do this movie. So 2 years later, once we finally got our shit together and the financing locked in place, like, I mean, we had been keeping in touch through email, but I finally called him and I was like, it's a go, and he was still excited to do it. And yeah, I mean, Rich is just like the sweetest guy ever, and he's so committed to acting. And um yeah, it was, we talked a lot, him and I had a lot of discussions about this character and finding the balance between like you know uh, um just your typical twirly mustache fucking villain, and like how we can sort of ground him a little bit more, and but we're still making him scary as fuck.
And he
Uh,
definitely is, yeah.
yeah, yeah, he's terrifying. I mean, shit, he scared me on set, man.
Which is crazy because
um,
we've heard that about Richard Brake before, that he's like the sweetest guy to work with. And so it's
oh
always
my god,
amazing seeing him in like Barbarian and other things, how terrifying he can be. It's really interesting.
it's really funny, man. Yeah, he's just such a soft-spoken gentleman and so committed and so professional. And then the second we start rolling, he just that switch flips, and you're like, oh fuck, and like everybody in the room feels uncomfortable because he just brings it. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
yeah,
yeah, no, I think you
yeah.
nailed it with the casting. I did want to talk a little bit about the influences of the film. It felt very original and refreshing, but at the same time, it had those really nice homages to other films. I was thinking of The Hateful Eight, even earlier back, Petrified Forest. I want to get
Oh
your
yeah.
thoughts on like what films were you kind of tapping into as you crafted your own film?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, Don Siegel, Sam Peckinpah for sure. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, Charlie Varick, and obviously like always Hitchcock is in the back of my head when crafting like a suspenseful moment. It's like seeing the way he moves the camera and how to create most tension. From something as little as like pouring the sugar in the coffee.
Mm,
How do you intensify that on screen? But in terms of like influences, definitely that 70s cinema like Siegel and Peckinpah. But also, film noir. Rafifi, which I mentioned in the movie, is one of my favorite movies, and Double Indemnity, and westerns like High Noon and Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It's a plethora. I
mm.
love movies, so I somehow like they're all in the back of my head when I sit down to write in some capacity.
No, I really like that, and it definitely shines through in the film as well. That your love
Cool.
for cinema is definitely there. I want
Yeah.
to also ask you about the location of the film. I thought it was brilliant and kind of like cozy and in that kind of Western vibe with the hotel, the motel and the diner there. Where did you film the film and how did it come about to yeah, for that kind of contained
Yeah.
location?
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved contained movies like Rope and
Mm,
Le Silence de la Mer. And like, I always wanted to tackle something like that in a single location story. But I had written all my short films based on locations that we had access to because we had no money. So it was like shooting my friends, like desert houses and that. So when it came time to writing the feature, I was looking for locations that we could afford and stumbled upon Four Aces, this film set in Lancaster. And I went in, took a bunch of photos, kind of drew an overhead of the entire layout, all the booths, everything, and then just started crafting the story based on the location. And then quickly, like after I realized like that set is actually used in a lot of commercials and TV and movies. So then it was just like, okay, working with my production designer, we had like a couple weeks of dressing and scenic to like just make it our own. A lot of conversations about like just little touches that we could do to make it feel like Charlotte's home. But yeah, I mean the location was just kind of just randomly stumbled upon it, and I was like, this is amazing, and I wanted to utilize every aspect of that location, like the back door where Vernon comes out of, like every little thing. I just tried to write it in to make it feel very specific.
and I think contained movies like this are even more suspenseful when you have a director of your craft who kind of constructs the geography so well, so the audience knows the layout and everything. And I think that was really neat too. Yeah, no, thank you
Oh,
so
thanks,
much.
man. Yeah, that's I love that stuff. I just wanted to shoot the shit out of that location and like make sure we utilized every corner. And doing a single room uh feature and not making it feel like a stage play was
Mm.
like was was challenging, but I hope we did it.
Oh no, I'm certain you did it.